Hello everyone, I am back today with another video. This is going to be an after-the-fact recording of my game from round 2 of the Open League tournament. The last game uploaded to my channel was the first game from that tournament, and I did get the win in that, so if you haven't seen that game, feel free to check that out. But this is round 2, and this is against RadicalLibre. And I believe, if I recall correctly, he's about 300 or so elo when we were playing this game, so someone I would expect to be able to get the best of most of the time. As you can see here, I didn't really build a setup that kind of reflected that. And actually, I'm not really sure why I built a setup like this to begin with, because when I was playing this game, I was trying to get it over quickly if I could. I wasn't trying to throw the game away or anything like that. But the time that we had arranged ended up not really being so convenient for me, and I was trying to hopefully escape with a quick win if I could, or something quick. So I was playing on my phone. Which is the reason this is not an actual recording of the game, but just the replay function on the website. So you won't get to see any of the particular move times for any of our moves. But I was playing on my phone and I was fairly distracted. You'll see a few questionable moves, I think, in this game. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the game. So you can see he opens there on the right side, and I'm going to go ahead and open on the left. You can see my setup is kind of built to open on the left, and I will not disappoint. So I'm going to go ahead and immediately take that piece with my Colonel. Lieutenant, not bad. And then I'm going to go ahead and rush in. He's going to move up with that piece. I take it, we trade captains, and then he fires a scout here. And then I go ahead and hit that piece there with my Colonel, and that's his major. And I honestly could not tell you. You can actually see up on the top here, this game was played a little bit over a month ago, in September. I could not really tell you why I hit that major. I think a big part of it was just planning to be pretty risky with the Colonel, being okay with losing the Colonel, and kind of pursuant to wanting the game to be over quicker, sooner rather than later. But I don't know why I chose to hit the major in that setting. Something about him firing the scout from here to find my captain made me want to hit the major, but that doesn't really make sense because firing the captain is something I would do if I wanted my opponent to hit this piece, if this were a bomb, and I wanted to incentivize them to hit it. So I'm not really sure why I actually chose to hit it, but as you can see, I get really lucky there. Extremely lucky. Much more than I should have gotten. But we'll go ahead and keep it playing. So he moves a piece out. I move a scout over because I want to check it. And I decide after thinking, I'm going to fire that scout. It's going to be his Colonel, and then he's going to take my Colonel with his Marshal. So in hindsight, if I had a little more focus, thought through it a little bit more, it makes sense that this is the Marshal. Because there was a major here. In his setup, there's a major here, there's a scout here, the one he fired to hit my captain. Then there was a marshal here, as we discovered. And the front row, I believe, was something like lieutenant, which I took with my colonel, and then we traded captains, and then his colonel was there. So it wouldn't make as much sense for there to be scout, captain, marshal, but it does make a lot of sense for there to be colonel here and then marshal behind. At any rate, it makes more sense for the deeper piece to be the marshal. So definitely the play there was to pull back with the colonel. And not just leave it sitting there for the marshal. But despite that, this is a trade I'm okay with, because I already got his major. I did also discover his colonel, and I also now know his marshal, and I'm up that lieutenant that I happened to take that front row piece. So not the best play by me overall, especially very risky hitting with the major and his marshal, being able to take my colonel, but not really a bad trade overall. So I'm going to go ahead and just move a sergeant up. The point there is just to put something in the lane that's not very important to distract him. So again, kind of works perfectly. I get a low, crappy, low piece for that. Minor is actually a pretty good kit with a sergeant. That's the best you're going to get, in fact. So I moved down with my sergeant there. I was kind of hoping he would move down and maybe hit the captain with his marshal here, but he doesn't. That was a pretty poor play. I don't know why I came up with my lieutenant and went against his major. There wasn't really much to that. It was just kind of a lapse in focus. But here I'm going to be able to take advantage of the fact that I know his marshal. He's going to give me that lieutenant back. And then I'm going to chase his major here. He's going to move to the left and then to the right. And then you're going to see here he moves to the left again, which by virtue of doing that, this major simply cannot move unless it actually attacks my general, which he's not going to do that, because why would he do that? He knows it's a general, and he's going to lose it. But he can't move to the right, is the real point in me saying that anymore, because he's trapped himself here. And, I mean, definitely I think the smart play, if you're him, is to move the major to the left while I'm trying to get this general out in anticipation of the fact that I'm going to try to two-square you. But even here, I think there might be something to be said about maybe moving the major over. I probably follow it, but there's a chance that I like assume that this is the general, just because like why would he leave the major sitting in the lane unless he didn't have backup? There's a chance I might actually not pursue the major because I'm confident enough this is the general and I don't want to trade just yet, or I want to get something into position before I trade with him. But as it ends up, he moves that there, so I go ahead and take it. And then he's going to move this piece to the left, which tells me, okay, his general's on that side. So I chase it, and we trade. And at that point, I'm very happy to trade generals. Now I'm up 2 majors and a lieutenant and a minor for that one colonel that I'm down. And I do have the info advantage pretty heavily at this point, too. So here I move over with that sergeant, kind of bluffing loosely that lieutenant as a spy. But he actually hits down, which is really good for me, because that could have been a disaster otherwise. Especially, you know, he knows the captain, he knows the sergeant. I don't know if you remembered he knew the captain, but if I'm kind of playing this off as a spy, you have a pretty good reason to hit this with your major, knowing that this is a captain. Because unless this is my marshal, you know, that's going to be a great play for you to hit that with the major. So I got pretty lucky there. You could have done some damage with all these move pieces. But I'm certainly not going to complain about him attacking down. I'm able to trade that off. So I kind of just advance with another garbage piece there, get a scout. It's kind of a theme of this game, is me being able to do things like that. And then I'm going to come up with a colonel. I am down a colonel, but of course I know his marshal, so this colonel's pretty much invincible. And the idea here is I want to trade colonels, but I don't want to trade the colonel I know. I want to trade his unknown colonel so I can maintain that info advantage. So he's going to scout me there. And then I'm going to come up, I'm just going to try to make something happen with the colonel. Discover, attack, you know, find a bomb, something. So I find a captain there. That's all right. Particularly because he can stop me with his colonel from taking the captain. But he seems a little bit too preoccupied on the left, in my opinion. He's coming down with that piece. I go ahead and actually move the captain back, and he chases me in. And I don't know what that is. I just needed to defend the captain with the marshal, and then he actually ends up just trading. So I got really lucky there, it being a lieutenant. But right here, I guess maybe he's afraid of this like being the marshal or something. But he could have very well stopped me, because he knows this is a colonel. The moment you see me moving up with that major, he should have chased my colonel, chased it, either traded or chased it out of the center. Because at this point, then he's just giving me a free captain, and it doesn't make any sense. So, free piece. There's no way I'm not going to take that. So he moves that scout. Not too much there. I actually, again, don't want to trade this, and I kind of recognize at this point he thinks the major might be my marshal. As you can see, I moved up with the colonel, and he declined to follow me there. He moved that way instead. So I'm going to go ahead and chase this captain I found. I got my major here. And I think I realized about right here, I'm actually not going to be able to take this captain, but I guess at least I can trap it, whatever. What I would really like to happen is for him to trade colonels with me. Of course, I don't care if he scouts that minor. Not much to be found there. I would like him to come up with a second colonel and trade with me. And this major is unknown, so I figure if I just let him hit it, I'm okay with that. Because he's probably not going to just come up with a colonel on a piece he was running away from this, you know, his colonel he was running away from this with. So I go ahead and just come up with a minor. It's known, I've got a lot of pieces. Find something while his defenses are not really in position in the middle. So go ahead and hit that. It's a lieutenant, not the best result. And then he threatens my major, so I go ahead and pull back. At this point, he's getting his marshal involved on the right side, which is not really what I wanted. I would have preferred if he traded his other colonel with me here. And you're going to see actually at this point, my major's in a little bit of trouble here. Because now my colonel, because I have to respond to this by either moving down, which would be a terrible play. That allows him to 2-square me. And I have no backup here. So I'm going to move over. I have to move over, basically. And he's going to be able to trap my colonel. So not only am I not going to like just get the captain like I was thinking earlier, and I think I messed up the moves before his marshal came on this side, but now my colonel's trapped and my major's trapped, and I don't really get a captain. And I think what's more, so if I move over, and you're going to see this play out a little bit, so I'll just go ahead and hit play. I move over, and then he moves over to trap me. And then in the interim here, I decide to do something in the center, because I think my plan at this point is I'm just going to sack the major on the captain. I was thinking about it, and I don't think there's actually a good way to save the major. Because if I move, I think if I had like initiated the move, if I had moved down, and he had moved down, and I had moved the lieutenant over, I could have escaped the major through, but given him a lieutenant for it. I didn't have the best focus. I wasn't really thinking of that at the time. And there might be an argument to be made that actually sacking the major is better than just giving giving a free lieutenant, especially because a captain, I am aided by the fact that a captain and a major are the same thing almost at this point, because he has no majors left. So once we just trade like one more captain, assuming I take that, a major and a captain are the same thing to me. But that matters a little bit less in light of what happens here in the center. I chase that lieutenant and I move over. My logic here, I don't think it was great, but I had been like running all around with this colonel. And obviously this colonel was causing some sort of problems for him. He couldn't really move any of these pieces. His captain was trapped. I figured that if this piece was his colonel, he would have traded it with my colonel. But actually he made a very smart play. It was not, and he took my major. So not the best for me. And then you're going to see it play out here on the right side. I'm going to go ahead and sack the captain. And we have a new game situation where I kind of just gave up 2 majors, and I did get a captain for it. So this is by no means a disaster. I'm definitely still up. Because I'm up 2 captains and a lieutenant and a minor and a scout. Doesn't really matter that much. And I'm down a sergeant and I'm down a colonel. So I'm up basically 3 pieces to his colonel, and I have an info advantage. Not as big as I used to, but well, still pretty big. Because I do know both of his colonels, so I'm going to have to trade that. But the problem here is I had a lot bigger of an advantage, and I'm definitely losing the momentum at this point due to some pretty questionable moves there. So I go ahead and go to the center. We're going to trade. That's fine. And I go ahead and bring this captain up. I'm trying to just confuse him, kind of corner him. I want him to waste smaller pieces. I want to get sergeants. I want to get minors. I want him to use his last scout. So you can see I'm coming up here with bluffs. Lieutenant there. The lieutenant actually is not very believable because if I had backup, I probably would have just set my major there. But that's beside the point. So I'm going to move the captain over, and then he's going to move over with me, so I'll take that. Free sergeant, that's exactly what I wanted, so that's really good. And then he's going to decide that's not my spy, that lieutenant there, so he's going to move next to it with his marshal. At this point, I'm not really sure what to do. I've got a lot of kind of exposed mid-level pieces, got my 2 captains in the center. He doesn't really have much to take advantage of that with. But I was pretty unfortunate in my mind at this point that I had, lost those majors. But I think ideally if I could trade captains, that would be nice. But I'm not really sure how to go about doing that because I don't know how to find his last captain other than wasting more pieces. But I do come up then with the captain. I'm going to try to threaten that lieutenant in the center just while he's occupied on the left. Kind of makes sense. Apply pressure evenly across the lanes. So he's going to chase this scout all the way back. Not so far back to the spy, but stopping just 1 point short there. And then he's going to start attacking on the left. And really in my mind at this point, he's kind of chasing Ghost by going after the scout. And he makes no effort to defend this lieutenant that's sitting here in the center, while my 2 known captains go and attack it. He's going after that scout. And to his credit, he's going to get that scout. You're going to see he takes it. A bit of a risky play, sort of. I mean, yeah, sergeant's known. And yeah, as my spy by marshal, probably not. I let you, access it with a lot of pieces earlier in the game. But at the same time, it's my spy, so it's pretty valuable anyway. So that argument only holds up so well. But he's going to start attacking on the left side. And I think that really just ends up being a poor decision. And again there, I guess he was trying to protect his flag, although I'm not sure if that makes much sense in light of what we see from his setup later on in the game. But he's kind of letting me have my way with the rest of the board while he's attacking on the left. And if my flag had been there, that might have been a good strategy. But it ended up not really being. So he took the spy there. Really no way for me to stop that. And at this point, I'm like, okay, my marshal's unknown. A bit unfortunate, but given that he has his spy, I'm going to force a trade here. So I do that. So he does get that lieutenant back that I had gotten from my 2 captains up here. But I get a sergeant for it, because he took this with a sergeant. And at this point, he's going to get desperate, I think. I think he starts lottoing pretty soon. Yeah, so he takes that minor. I'm like, okay, sure. And then I do find his last captain there, which is really good. Then he takes a scout. I'm like, okay, it's really going lotto. I guess he doesn't really know any bombs. Maybe you could assume this one. Then he starts to go toward the center. I'm like, okay, got to get a captain in position. Not let him bring a minor up or anything. So I'm feeling good. He doesn't have any lieutenants left. And then he moves this piece, which really makes no sense at all. There's no reason to move anything that's not your colonel, at all. The one thing you could do maybe is use, shuffle between these 3 with the captain, so I have to bring both of my captains over to trade, so it maybe opens up, for you to do something in the center. But this is really inexcusable. This makes absolutely no sense at all. One, your strategy to win, or not win, but to obtain anything other than a loss at this point, if you're my opponent, is to make me waste my miners on places that are not the flag, so that you escape, with your colonel, which I can't kill, but I'm also not able to get your flag by virtue of not having any miners. If you're really, really lucky, I might be so unsuccessful with my miners that I blow everything else up trying to find your flag. But exposing your setup, telling me this is not a bomb, and two, just losing material, it's not a good play. It doesn't make any sense at all. There's no reason to do that. And then he hits me. It's a miner, of course. I mean, my lieutenant's going to kill anything. So that kind of renews his desperation. So he charges back on the left, and I'm like, really? Are you going to hit that miner? Yeah, yes he is. He's going to hit that miner. And at this point, I'm getting a little nervous. Because I feel like I don't know, like he just wiped that whole side out. I can't tell if he's just like going crazy, or if he like has a read on my setup, and now I'm worried about like, oh, man, I got one miner left. It's all the way buried back here. I'm kind of exposed. Any miner from this side can come. I've got these pieces here, but what if he trades sergeants? What if he then comes down with a miner? I've got to bring this stuff over. My sergeants are pretty far away. So I'm kind of worried at this point. I'm like, maybe he's got to read on my setup. I'm kind of drawing up plans to excavate my pieces, and then he just runs into the bomb. So it kind of shows that he had no idea what he was doing with that lotto the whole time. So ends up being a win for me. He surrenders after that. Which makes sense. Not really much left to the game after he lost his colonel. Definitely a game that was harder than it needs to be for me. I was technically like down that colonel ever since I lost it on like move, I think like 17 or something like that, to his marshal here. But I was up a lot in the mid game, and I had to sweat a little bit more for this than I would have liked. But I did get the win, and I think the game was under 20 minutes, so not terrible time-wise. But I was pretty happy with that overall, just to escape with the win in an unideal situation and go to 2-0. So that is my round 2 game. And keep eye posted for round 3 and other games to follow, because actually at this point that I'm recording this, the group stage is over, so all 7 games have been played. So be on the lookout for those. Otherwise, thank you all for watching, and see you guys in the next video.